Good morning, guys, and welcome back to the Break-Thru Active podcast. I'm here with Jamie again here this morning for episode 2. If you're listening, it is the 27th of April, 2020, and we are just beginning week 6 of our coronavirus lockdown. How are you this morning, Jamie?
I'm fantastic. So episode 1, guys, was fantastic. This time I won't be doing this.
You got a little bit fidgety on our box here in front of us, so we've made a few changes, but today we are going to delve into the story of how the boot camp or how our journey started in group fitness, which takes us all the way back to 2015. We often do get asked how we did end up in this part of the world, considering we both grew up on the Central Coast, and this story takes us back to where we started in Kurri, all the way back in the middle of 2015. But we are going to share our story before that, how we got into the fitness industry, and then also how we began our boot camp up there at Kurri 5 years ago.
I'm excited for this podcast because Ryan, Brody, Steve, even Ellen and Kate, they know the general story, but they don't know the story in detail. And just, I think a lot of roadblocks that we had to overcome early on that people don't realise that aren't in the fitness industry or in business in general. So Mitch, let's go back to 2012. I believe it was March or April. Firstly, our love of the fitness industry both led us to want to work in the fitness industry. So I was the first cab off the rank. I ended up being a manager at Fitness First Chatswood. I'm sure that most of you didn't know that. I was there for about 3 months, and from there,
yeah, well, Jamie was at a time in our lives where Jamie had been working at Centrelink. I had finished university, and we'd done a little bit of travelling and were a little bit unsure of what our next step was going to be. We both loved going to the gym. We both knew that we wanted to do perhaps something in that realm, but not exactly didn't know exactly what it was going to be. So while Jamie got his first job there at Fitness First, I got a job up at Fit and Fast at Charlestown, doing some front desk work and just some membership work, but not as a trainer. And I was there for about 6 months before we started travelling.
I definitely shouldn't have been a manager at Fitness First. So if you want some help writing a resume or interviewing,
I still remember when you first let me know about that you became manager, sales manager, I think it was. And I said, "You don't have any sales experience." And he said, "Yeah, I know, but my boss doesn't know that." But
sometimes you have to fake it until you make it. And that experience at Fitness First was invaluable for me because it I guess when people think about the fitness industry and I guess anyone wanting to be a PT in general, they think, I lift weights, I like working out, this is going to be easy. There is such a large business behind gyms and even behind us and the processes involved. And it was, I guess, dip my toe in the water of just what's actually involved in that process.
Yeah, I was a little bit the same. I loved working out and never really thought too much more than that. Even though I had studied business at university, I didn't really understand how a gym could be a business. But when I started working up at Charlestown, I quickly learned that there was a lot more to it than just people coming in and working out. From there, I was there for about 6 months. So that took us through to the end of 2012, and that's when we moved overseas. We moved to Canada. With no real intention to necessarily work in the industry, but we both ended up working in the same gym over there. It was World Gym in Kelowna, British Columbia.
I think it's safe to say that both of us were a bit lost in life, as in I hated working for Centrelink. It's not a bad job, it just wasn't for me. And I think you finished your degree and you just were unsure. Yeah. And then we still had the party bug. And somehow, some way, we ended up in a small town called Kelowna in British Columbia in Canada, which is right near our ski resort.
Yeah, so like I said, we didn't necessarily move there to want to work in a gym, but it just so happened we ended up there. And we worked there for probably a year or a little bit longer before we came back, and we did learn some more over there. That was more just us trying to earn some money to supplement our party lifestyle, more so than anything.
What we both realised, I guess, in Canada and the United States as opposed to Australia is there is a much larger focus on personal training. Yeah. And I think we both realised that's such a great service to offer, because the majority of people that join gyms are just so unsure. So everyone that joined a gym, in World Gym in Canada. They sat down with either me or Mitch for 1 hour.
Yeah, so that was up until that point, we'd only really, worked in gyms in terms of memberships and front desk and I guess admin side of things, but not really looked into personal training that much or had much to do with that at all. And it wasn't until our experience there where Jamie, like he said, we found that there was such a process around getting people help when they started at the gym, because for the starters, a lot of people had never stepped foot in a gym before. A lot of people had no idea what to do or how to use the equipment. And that really just got the wheel turning for us in our minds when we thought that there wasn't as much of an emphasis on group training or personal training in Australia. And this is all before the days of, F45 and all the group
CrossFit
fitness stuff that you see now. So when we came back at the end of 2014, we ended up through a friend of ours getting a job up at Anytime Fitness at Curry, and that's really where this whole journey started. So we began working at the gym there. We became good friends with the owner. We were doing the front desk. We were doing personal training. We were doing memberships. We were doing everything. We were taking out the garbage, doing the lot there, and we enjoyed that. We had a very good client base of clients for our personal training business, and one of which is still with us today. So shout out to Kylie Gray, if you are listening. She's still a member of ours at the boot camp, but she was my very first client over there at Anytime Fitness.
Who was mine? Was it
Lee
Kelly?
Maybe?
Yeah, Lee lost 20 kilos. I still chat to Lee every now and again. I actually went to his christening for his daughter, which was lovely.
Okay.
But what we learned from Canada was the emphasis on personal training, and we used that same process at Anytime Fitness Curry. And as Mitch said, we had about probably 30 to 40 clients between us. Now, I think it's safe to say that Curry isn't the easiest town to penetrate, as in we were viewed as city slickers.
Yeah, well, it's the type of place, and obviously we've gotten to know a lot of people there and become very acquainted with the town and a lot of people in it. But initially, we were viewed as outsiders coming in, and it was a little bit of the notion of why would you move to Curry, and we got asked that quite a lot, and we still do to this day, how our lives and how our fitness business started there. And it's just one of those things that, we came back and like I said, we had the in from a friend who knew one of the owners up there. But like Jamie said, it was hard for us to penetrate because it is a very cliquey town. There are a lot of people who have, been, born and raised there and have been for generations. So for us coming in, it was hard initially for us. And, we often do talk about that initial set of clients who we had who really paved the way for us, and we are forever grateful for those people, because if we were never to have started with those first dozen or 2 dozen clients, then we probably would have thrown the towel in a lot earlier.
Yeah, if any trainers are listening, I can't stress the importance of those first 20 members or those first 20 clients in that area, because with Instagram and TikTok, trainers think they need to have 10,000 followers. When really you just need 20 raving fans. And we had our 20 clients that loved and adored us. And if you treat them well, and we did, we bent over backwards for every single one of them, they spread the word for you. So
this was before Facebook really took off. I mean, Facebook was around, but not in a business sense. Everyone had a personal page. We didn't really do much on their Instagram. I don't even know if I had Instagram then. And everything else, all the social media that's around now. So we really did rely on our personal skills. And even to this day, we still, obviously we use social media, but we still pride ourselves on the personal connection we have with people. Because if you are a personal trainer, then you're in the people business. More so than you're in a fitness business, you're in the people business. You have people who are your clients, and you are trying to get them results. You're trying to get them healthy, but you're also trying to keep them happy and develop and maintain good relationships with them.
Yeah, and quite often we discover a member that we thought that we'll discover a member, for example, like Corey and Mel Harrison. We thought they saw us on Facebook, and that's why they came down and joined. However, Mel works with Lee Lowry, who's another one of our members, and Lee Lowry is the sister of Justin Colton, who was one of Mitch's first PT clients in Curry. So once again, any trainers out there, those first 20 clients are just so important, just to help you grow your business?
We got to the point, like I said, we had a good amount of people, but we often ran into the conversation that we had with our clients, I should say, where they wanted to train with us more, but it was just money holding them back. So personal training isn't the cheapest thing. A lot of just about all of our clients would see us one time a week, and then we develop a program for them to follow by themselves. But there's no doubt that they got their best results and had their best sessions when they were with us. So that got, like I said, the wheel turning for us on how could we deliver a similar service at a cheaper rate. And for us, we couldn't reduce how much we were charging for personal training because it would completely devalue it. And also a lot of these sessions for us were done early in the morning or late at night, so we still had to maintain some sort of balance in our lives. So that's when the idea of group fitness and a boot camp came about.
Yeah, and group fitness wasn't a new thing. However, we did not want to do a Les Mills style of class. There's nothing wrong with that, but I wasn't dancing up the front with a microphone. We wanted to incorporate the same exercises, the same principles, and realistically, the as close a service as possible to personal training and deliver that in a group environment.
And when we started that, we were working at Anytime Fitness, so we were drawing our wage from there. So we started it as being just a bit of a side project. We used to run we sort of agreed that we'd run 6 a.m. sessions each day. And we also decided that we would make a certain part of our business around supporting local charity. And that was an idea that we just had. We weren't necessarily needing all the money that we're bringing in, because it was something that we're doing on the side, and we were wanting to give back to the community and being able to support that as well. So that's when our first bootcamp name of 2327 Charity Bootcamp came around. So
2327 is the postcode for Curry Curry. So we thought, what a great way for us to, I guess, share our business with that town. You did the beep test on Saturday. Do you want to run us through So our first ever session was July 27, 2015 in Booth Park, Curry Curry. We were both there, middle of winter, 0 degrees.
We agreed to the sessions at 6 a.m. and I don't know if we put too much thought into it or not, but when we turned up at about 5:30, we realised that the sun wasn't going to be up till about 6:30 or 7. So on that very first morning, we actually had and for quite a few weeks actually, we used to leave our headlights on so that our clients could actually see what they were doing. And for the first morning, I think we had about 15 people show up, which was an awesome turnout considering it was the middle of winter, and anyone who has been in the Curry region during the middle of winter would realise that it is close to 0 degrees a lot of the time in the mornings at that point. But we thought it would be a good idea to start the first morning with the beep test. And like Jamie said, we have recently done that, again, just the other day. But again, without putting too much thought into it, we hadn't really heard the playlist through. We remember doing it back in year 7 or 8 and remember that it was quite easy for the first few levels to the point where you could actually walk. But when we got everyone started, we said, guys, you can take it very easy these first few levels. It's not going to get difficult till about 4 or 5. And everyone started walking on the first beep, and they all missed the very first beep, and that kind of set the scene for a very scrambled first morning. But we all laughed it off in the end, and it was definitely a glowing success.
And I think the lesson we learned from that is, and what we still believe today is, the session's important, but what's more important is making those members feel comfortable, because we felt like idiots. Like doing that beep test.
I was so embarrassed.
So embarrassed. However, those first 15 people were so nervous, they were embarrassed they didn't complete it.
I think that was almost like a good icebreaker as well. Everyone was so nervous, and after the first few minutes we were all laughing, and we were obviously honest with them and said, we didn't really plan that part out too well, and they all had a laugh, and we continued from there. But it was a good lesson learnt, because not everything has to be perfect when you start. Like I said before, it was pitch black, and we thought on the fly and put our headlights on, and we had the beep test. We didn't even have a speaker for the beep test, if you remember. We had it on our phones, and
that's all right.
It was, and we told everyone to be quiet, and they couldn't talk, so they'd hear the beep. So it was far from perfect, but it was a good lesson for us to know that we could still get something done even if it wasn't perfect, and we could continue to improve it over time.
Yeah, so that first boot camp was a 10-week challenge, and we donated 10% of the revenue to a charity. Now, I actually chose the first family. It was for Peter Van Dam. I played AFL with him for 20 years. Lovely guy, and he had a son who was having some issues with epilepsy. So that was our first donation to him.
Yeah, so initially, like I said, we were still working at the gym at the time, so this was something we just ran each morning. We were planning on doing it 10-week blocks. It would bring in a little bit of extra money for us. It would help, like Jamie said, help support a local family or a local charity that needed it. But also it just was something that we enjoyed. We've always enjoyed training people, believe it or not, even at 6 a.m. in the middle of winter, we still enjoyed it. But mainly it gave our clients the opportunity to train more with us. So like I said earlier, a lot of the time people did want to train more, but it was just the finances that was holding them back because of the price of personal training. But introducing the boot camp in a group dynamic and having 5 to 10 to 15 people per session, it allowed us to decrease those costs and allowed us to see those clients more, which was really important for us and really important for them at the time.
And halfway through the challenge, I was training one of my first clients ever. His name's John Waring. Back to those first 20 members, Brodie Griggs, our trainer, actually worked for John Waring.
Yep,
and Nat Briggs. Yep, is still a psychologist for John. So once again, can't stress the importance of those first 20 people. So at that time, John was paying, I think, $180 a week, and he was seeing me 3 mornings a week. And we were charging personal training. We were charging $45 a week for boot camp, and I couldn't, in good conscience, charge John $180 for 3 sessions a week when he could pay $45 a week for boot camp. And that's when, I guess, our belief in group training just skyrocketed as the sessions were fun, people made friends, it was affordable, and those members got better results.
I think personal training, there is definitely a market for that out there, and there are a lot of people who do personal training, and when I say personal training, I mean one-on-one training, and they do it very well. It's for people that may have a very specific goal. They may be athletes, they may be working for something that can only be done in a one-on-one setting. But for the people we were training and the people that we wanted to train, they tended to be from the world of people that just wanted to come in. They knew that exercise was important, but they also wanted to have a good time doing it. They didn't want it to be a complete strain on their budget. So we found that a good happy medium with that was group training.
So the beep test debacle is behind us. We're week 4. Everyone's loving it. However, we get a call from Cessnock Council saying you guys can't use the oval before 7 a.m. And that was a big issue because the sessions were 6 a.m. and typically 7 a.m. was too late for our members to start training. So then we scrambled, and as with John Waring, Nat Briggs and Brodie Griggs, Kylie Gray, Mitch's first ever client, knew the leader of the Girl Guide Hall in Kurri, and we were fortunate enough to rent that as our first ever community hall.
Yeah, so just like our foresight with the light and the beep test and the speaker, we didn't even really look into needing council approval, and we were quite young and naive, but definitely had a go-getter attitude. So it was about a month or so until we even realised that you needed a permit of sorts. So like I said before, we sort of scrambled on the fly and were lucky enough to be able to get an in through Kylie Gray up to the Girl Guide Hall, and that's where we moved our operation. We still had those morning sessions and they were running each day, so nothing effectively changed. And if you know the Kurri area, the Girl Guide Hall is only a couple of 100 metres from the park, so it worked out well.
So we wrapped up our first 10-week challenge. We had a little bit of a party, which we like to do. And then we started our next 10-week challenge 2 weeks later, and the numbers doubled. So we were thrilled. However, at that time, we got some devastating news.
Yeah, so after we just started that second block, it was at that point that we found out that the gym was being sold to a new owner, and the new owner had his own set of staff that he wanted to bring in. So as of, I think it was a few weeks after that phone call, which would have been September or October 2015, we were going to be without a job at the gym.
And we'd also signed a new lease in Head and Greeter.
yeah, we were currently living up there, and as you can imagine, we weren't really exactly sure what to do at that point, and we were living, together at the time. So we spent a lot of time sort of talking about what's our next move going to be. I mean, the boot camp was good, but it was still small, and was it going to be able to support us to the point where we could make a living off that? Because at that point we weren't earning any money from the gym. Luckily enough for us, we did have some savings where we could give it a bit of a crack, and we kind of decided we'll give it a few months and really see what comes of that.
Now, at the time, those 10-week challenges, we were getting members to pay 10 weeks up front or on a 10-week direct debit. And when we lost that waged, we realised, I guess, the need for us to create a direct debit for our security and for us just to pay our weekly bills like everyone else. So at this time, we were at a crossroads. We realised that we wanted to have our own business, gym, or create just like a reliable source of income for our future. And we were very, very, very close to actually buying Anytime Fitness Curry.
Well, at that same point, when the owner had told us it was selling, he did offer that to us as well. We won't get into the specifics, but it was hundreds of thousands of dollars. And as two 25-year-olds, we definitely gave it some thought, but we weren't in the position where we were wanting to get that sort of loan, and I don't know if we would have even gotten access to that through the bank, but we decided against it at the time, and then put our thoughts towards the boot camp and really sunk our teeth in there.
And I guess our belief in group training was higher than ever then, and we thought, do we really need 20 treadmills? Do we really need all those fancy machines and equipment? And that's when we realised all we need is a space that's an indoor space that we can use on a consistent basis where members can come and train, and we'll create the environment and bring the equipment. And that's really when the actual boot camp was born, because at that point we had no other option, we had no job, and it was this or move back to the Central Coast.
Because up until that point, we had been keeping equipment in the back of our cars forever. And we would lug it out each morning and pack it away, and it had all sorts of grass and dirt and mud on it. And for us, we needed something more permanent. And it didn't have to be necessarily a big building that we leased, but we needed somewhere we could at least leave our equipment. And like Jamie said, we decided we bought some more dumbbells and kettlebells and things like that, but we always made the decision that we would never need the same sort of equipment that a gym had, which was unheard of at the time.
Yeah.
Everywhere that people would go and train would have the things that you'd normally see at a gym. You'd have treadmills, you'd have some bikes, you'd have some rowers, you'd have your machines, you'd have mirrors, and we had none of that.
And I guess from working in all those gyms in the past, I've worked for Snap Fitness, Genesis, World Gym, Fitness First, Anytime. Mitch worked for Fit and Fast, World Gym, and Anytime. We realised that there was just a fundamental flaw in gyms, and it was the fact that the people that we typically train did not like gyms. So why in the world would we go out and buy a gym when the people that we typically train don't want to walk into a gym?
We realised that the people who we were training, they liked us. They liked the environment that we had created, and they liked being around other people like them. They didn't want to walk into a gym and feel uncomfortable and feel overwhelmed and go and use equipment that they had no idea how to use. They wanted somewhere that they felt good about themselves training, and they wanted somewhere that they would be able to enjoy the process of training as much as the person next to them.
So the second 10-week challenge wrapped up. We donated money to Paul Green, who was...
I think a member just might have known him. I can't remember who.
Yeah, and Paul actually passed away, which is sad, but that money helped build a granny flat for his disabled child. And that was the purpose of that charity. So we have a huge party up at the Chelly, one of many. We have 40 members there. We're thrilled with how it's gone. And then the beginning of next year, which is 2016... that is when we secured...
No, not quite. We added some sessions.
Yeah, sorry, we added some afternoon sessions.
So we went from just the early mornings to we added some mid-morning sessions and some afternoon sessions, which which created, I guess, some time for a lot more people to be able to train with us, because up until that point it was just 6 a.m. or nothing at all, and that suited a lot of people, but for some people it didn't. So when we added some more time slots, it definitely attracted.
Yeah, I think we
some
went
new people.
from 7 to 20. We had 5 6 a.m.s, 5 9:30s, 5 15 maybe, 5
10 a.m.
Yeah, 10 a.m.s and then 5:30s. And then we just kept growing and growing and growing and growing, and we couldn't believe it. Like these people just kept coming down.
And we got to the point where we outgrew the space, and we wanted to add even more sessions, because the guide hall at that point had
Weight Watchers in Mondays.
Yeah, they had some other, and obviously the girl guides were in there on certain days, so we could only access that, I think, 2 days a week. So there was a local guy, Brad Walters, who had actually come and done a few sessions with us, and he owned a business down the back of Curry where they had a mechanic and they had a few other bits and pieces, but they actually had a shed out the back there which was vacant, and I got into talks with him, and we ended up negotiating an agreement where we would be able to use the shed out the back there, and that came just in time because we were about to run out of daylight again, because daylight saving was just finishing up, if you remember. So we were needing somewhere that we could train people after 5:30 p.m. Otherwise, we would be facing the same problem we had at 6 a.m. a year before, where it was going to be pitch black. So that worked out really well.
And this shed, it was filthy. I loved it. Our members loved it, but it was hands down one of the dirtiest sheds on earth. It leaked. Dust and dirt blew in there. However,
I don't know how it was possible, but you would actually sweep it one night, and the next morning you'd walk in and it'd be dirtier than the night before.
Yeah, and as we opened this shed and 2327 continued to grow, we realized what we realized 6 months earlier is like the facility and the equipment does not matter. It is about the trainer. It is about your relationship with the member. And it's about them having a great time. And like our beliefs and values towards boot camp and the facility just grew and grew and grew. Because that shed, I think it's safe to say by maybe July, we were the biggest thing in Curry.
Well, we definitely we expanded our timetable. So it was every morning, it was every mid-morning, it was every afternoon.
It was 30 a week.
Yeah, and we ran a Saturday. So we were really putting our absolute heart and soul into this. And we had a huge group of people at each of those sessions, and word just got around. And the one thing about a small town like Curry is word does travel quickly. And we were doing, obviously, stuff on Facebook. It started to become a little more prominent at that time, but predominantly it was just word of mouth. You know, I felt like every other day we'd have someone, you know, calling us or messaging us and asking if they could bring along their friend or sister or mum from school or someone for a trial session, and we just continued to grow.
And then all of a sudden there was 3, I guess, fitness options in Curry. There was Anytime Fitness, the $500,000 facility. There was iGym, the $1 million facility. And there was just little old Jamie and Mitch.
$1,000 facility.
Down the back of the mechanic. You had to actually walk through dirt to get there. But members loved it. And
I think what was different at that time, this was the beginning of 2016. So like I said, F45 it definitely wasn't around this area at that point, so it was completely novel. So the idea of working out in a group on a consistent basis in a boot camp or a personal training type class or session was completely new. Like Jamie said before, obviously at gyms they do you know, pump class and spin and things like that, but we definitely didn't want to go down that route, and we found it to be, you know, very successful and very popular for people to be able to work out with their friends, where every session was different, and they'd get a good workout, but they'd also have a great time doing it too.
Yeah, and I just think that we brought the fun to fitness. And that's just so important. I remember Ellen was going to a pump class, my girlfriend Ellen, for 12 months, and the instructor didn't know her name. And that's not having a go at gyms or pump or that instructor. That is just the way they are run. And that is the fundamental flaw in gyms that we saw when we started the boot camp, was how can you train someone for 6 months and not know their name? Like, that is just, we just mentioned in the last podcast that first impressions are so important, and I cannot believe the instructor did not know her name, because after 5 minutes with me or Mitch, I know where you live, I know your partner's name, I know what you do for work, I know what you want to achieve.
Know what you had for breakfast that
morning.
Know what you had for breakfast.
And
I think the other thing as well is we brought a huge social element to it as well. So like we mentioned earlier, we had at the end of our 10-week challenges, we did have some end of challenge parties where we had some dinner and a night out and some drinks and things like that. But when we started to get more people, we had more events. We had, I remember we did an amazing race around Curry, which was an incredible day. We did an amazing race up at Mount Tomaree. We did other charity events where I remember had a big jumping castle, and we had things down at the boot camp there. So in addition to nights out, and we'd celebrate our birthdays and all that sort of stuff. So it was every month or every 2 months there would be something that our members could attend, which would increase and improve the bond amongst our members, and increase and improve the bond between us and the members as well.
Yeah, and the better the bond is between the members, it makes our job so much easier, because instead of having to encourage 20 people to come, the members do it for you, which is really helpful. And I think the other thing too, and I think we've learnt a lot, is most personal trainers aren't relatable. They're not friendly. They spend more time on Facebook posting pictures of them with their shirt off, and they're eating chicken and broccoli. And I think for Mitch and I, the members realised that we were just like them. Obviously, we take our health and fitness very serious, but once a month or once every 3 months or once every 6 months, we'd wind back the clock.
Yeah, I think you have to be relatable, and you can have the best program out there, and you can have the best facility, and you can have all that. But if you're not a people person and you're not relatable, then the people who are coming in aren't going to enjoy their experience for very long. And I think us, if we do say so ourselves, are very down to earth, and we can relate to and speak and communicate and with anyone, whether it is someone who is a teenager or someone in their 60s or 70s, and obviously we've got everyone in between as well. So we really placed an emphasis on being friendly, being encouraging, being welcoming, and just being genuine as well. I think that was a huge part for us, where we were very honest and genuine with all our members, so they knew us and we knew them. So
it was July. 2327 had really taken off, and we had our first massive party.
The shed party.
The
infamous
shed party. So in this shed, it was probably half the size of our Cardiff building. You guys haven't been here, so it's probably a little bit bigger than
5 metres by 15.
5 by 15. And we would have had 70 or 80 people there. We had a big fire there. We had beer pong. It was
a wild night.
And every single member that we had, majority of them were mums and dads, and they don't get out much. So this was penciled in their calendar. And it went off.
This was for your birthday, wasn't it?
No, it was our 1 year celebration.
Oh yeah, which was, I think it coincided with your birthday.
Yeah, it was our 1 year celebration. So I guess,
big fun night.
Even this podcast, it's reminding me of just every single little thing that we did just to get to our first year mark.
I guess, when we look back, and like I said, we still have a lot of those members in our program and in our lives who have been with us for 4 to 5 years now, and it is nice to look back and reflect on those times and think about how we started and think about some of those things that we did then. And sometimes for us, it's good for us to remember, because it does give us ideas for what we're doing now. We are always in conversation with each other and with our team about, what is it, what can we do that's different, what can we do that's new. Obviously at the moment with COVID-19, there's a lot of things we can't do in terms of social gatherings, but we draw a lot of inspiration from those times, because at that point in our life, it was everything to us. We'd wake up and, it would be the first thing we do at the day, it'd be the last thing we do at night. We were living together at the time, so we would be up till 10 or 11 at night talking about things and chatting about it through the day. So it really was, taking over our lives at that point. And I think the success of everything was really indicative of the time and effort we put into it.
Yeah, and I guess people don't see that. Even Steve, Ryan and Brody, they might not realise some of those things that we had to overcome at the start.
Well, I think a lot of people, and it's the same as me and you, if we were looking at something else, you see the finished product, and you think that this is the way it's always been, but there has been so many trials and tribulations and changes and things that we've looked at and revised to get to the point we're at now. But when we look back at what we were doing at Curry all those years ago, we can really step back and pat ourselves on the back and say we did a good job and we left no stone unturned.
So at the end of 2016, we had outgrown the shed and we moved up to a building in Kurri. But we're going to save that for episode 3 because that was really our first ever major setback, and it was our first real lesson in life.
And that's when we I guess that wasn't too long before we started to expand into other areas. So we will discuss that in the next podcast. But we just have a few questions for each other here just to finish everything up. So thinking back at, through all those times, what do you think the biggest challenge for us was, early on with everything starting out?
The biggest challenge was, I think it's the same as a fitness journey. I think it's just getting started. And it was for us just to take that leap of faith and start a boot camp in the middle of the winter with no council approval. I guess I'm very much of a believer of you can't wait for the perfect time. There's no such thing as the perfect time. Because if we waited for the perfect time, we would have went to the council for approval, we would have got knocked back, we would have asked Kylie Gray for the guide hall number, that hall might have been booked already, and we might never have got started. So
I agree. And I think as well, the biggest challenge I think was for us, in my opinion, taking it from a part-time job or a part-time gig to a full-time gig when we were let go from the gym. So that really did force our hand, because up until that point it was something just that we're doing extra. And even to this day...
We weren't let go. We were no fooling fired. We were fired.
And at that point, and even to this day, I don't know anyone else where there's 2 people as a business who can both make a living out of one boot camp in one area. So for us to be able to take that leap of faith to not look for another job to supplement our life, and for us to go all in on that boot camp, I think that was the biggest challenge, but one that we can look back on and really, really thank. We can be thankful and grateful that we did do that, because it's led us to where we are now.
And I think the most important thing is just being each other, to support each other, because you see confident, happy Jamie, you see confident, happy Mitch, and some days we are down, some days we don't feel the best. But quite often, when I'm down, Mitch is up, and vice versa. And I think that's just been absolutely crucial. Just someone to talk to, someone to bounce off. We speak to other business owners, and they're on their own, and I feel sorry for them.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I mean, we both have partners who we talk to about certain things, but we don't want to burden them with all our deepest issues and problems that we have with business. So for us to be able to have the outlet with each other, and we see each other a lot, but we also talk on the phone for sometimes hours a day, just spitballing different things and talking about potential issues or talking about the good things we've done. And this is over the course of the last 5 years. So being able to have that network just between us, which is obviously expanded now with the team we have, but initially having that other person to talk to and help us get through some of those more difficult times, I think was paramount.
What was the biggest lesson you learned? The biggest lesson you learned in that first year of business?
I think from a fitness perspective, I think the lesson I learned was that what we thought was a good way to train was made true, because we had so many people who came and did it. In our mind, we were thinking this is going to be great. Boot camp, have people around us, doing good movements and it's fun and everything. But that was just our opinion. And then to be able to have so many people do that and support us and love the program, I think that was something I learned. In terms of business, I think to piggyback off what you said, being able to follow something that you are passionate about, because it would have been very easy for us just to go and get a job. I had a university degree, Jamie had experience in different industries and could have probably walked into another decently paying job.
We could walk into any gym in Newcastle and get a job.
Yeah, well, even in the fitness industry. So I think for me, just following that idea that we had, and having belief that it was going to work if we were willing to do those hard things and stick through those hard times.
The biggest lesson I learned was just perseverance. And I always drop back to fitness, and one challenge doesn't matter. Either's 2, either's one good event. It's just, we literally poured our heart and soul into that for 365 days. July 27, 2015, it did not exist. And in 12 months' time, we were a really viable option for every single person in Curry to train at. And I'm almost going to say that there was very few people in Curry that hadn't heard of us.
Yeah, and I think it's the same way you look at anything. You know, with perseverance, you just have to continue doing it every day. We had gone years, and during that period where we had never cancelled a session. And obviously there are times when we weren't feeling great, when we were sick, or you know, we had some personal issues, I'm sure at times that had come up. But we always put our business first in that sense, because that was the standard that we'd set. And we knew if we keep turning up every single morning, then our members and our clients would be able to rely and trust us.
The first time we cancelled a session was April 2018, and it was after I had a heel injection and I couldn't get out of bed.
Yeah.
And think about that, that was, 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And then that's it, yeah. So we've gone a bit long because we just love talking.
Yeah.
But I think it's almost time we wrap it up.
We just wanted to share that initial story of how we got started and why we got started. You know, for some of you guys listening, you were a part of that journey, and like I said, we are very thankful for that. And those of you who have, you know, been a part of our life the last few years, hopefully it's been nice for you to be able to take a bit of a look at our humble beginnings, and then how we've gotten to the point we're at now. So thank you for listening, guys. We'll leave it there for today, and we will tune in with you guys again soon for our next episode.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.